What's up guys, Nischal back with another video, and today we're going to be looking at nerve cell with diagram and explanation. And I actually found this really cool 3D model which I hope to share with you guys, and I hope you get a more immersive experience through this. So, this is the model of a nerve cell. Nerve cells together form the nervous tissue, and the nervous tissue has the ability to be stimulated with some sort of natural response and then transmit that stimulus throughout various parts of the body. So we'll be looking into the structure of a nerve cell in complete depth. So if I were to label a couple of parts that the nerve cell is composed of, it would be the cyton, also known as the cell body, dendrites, axon. That's pretty much it. There's a few extra components that we'll talk about very soon. Starting off is the cyton, also known as the cell body. We can see right here. So right here is the cyton. As you can see, it contains the nucleus and the endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, centrosomes, all the typical animal cell organelles. And it's deeply stained with cytoplasmic granules, which you can see right here. All these different granules. These are all of the various different granules that it's deeply stained with, the cell body. So moving on, after we've covered the cell body, we can see here, there's this short branched processes that kind of develop and branch off the cyton. These are known as dendrites. They're short, relatively thin processes that branch off the cyton, and their job is to receive information from neighboring nerve cells, which you'll see in the next slide. So an easy way to remember is the dendrites will receive the information, and then the axons transmit the information to the next nerve cell. So that brings us exactly to the axon. So the axon is, you might be thinking that it's the white thick layer, but it's actually this thin layer, long hair-like process that juts out of the south side of the cyton. And as I mentioned earlier, the job of the axon is to transmit information to other neurons. So you may be wondering now, what are these thick layers? These are actually called myelin sheath, and they act as an insulator for the axon. But the problem with the myelin sheath is that they kind of slow down the transmission process, which is why we have these nodes of ranvier. Let me zoom in a little bit. We have these nodes of ranvier, which are these tiny little gaps, and they conduct an electric impulse to speed in the process of the transmission. Hope it's making sense. And the final thing that we have to talk about in terms of the structure of the neuron is pretty simple. It is these are called axon terminals. Zoom out a little bit. So they're also called terminal endings or axon terminals, whatever you want to call it. And this is the final destination. So let's zoom out a little bit. So in terms of the process of one neuron, it receives information from the dendrite, which is transmitted down the axon, and it reaches this axon terminal or terminal endings. So what happens next? We'll look at that in the next slide. So we have two neighboring neurons here, and as I mentioned earlier, these are the dendrites, which are receiving information from this neighboring neuron. And obviously, they're receiving information from the axon terminals. So that brings us to the function of the axon terminals. Together with the dendrites of a neighboring neuron, they form the synapse, which is a communication junction between two neurons. So, if we're talking about neural communication, suppose there's another neighboring neuron somewhere over here. So the axon terminals and dendrite of this neuron right here form a synapse, and the response or the stimulus flows down the axon, reaches this terminal ending, and the dendrites of this neuron form a synapse once again. So that's how communication is facilitated throughout nervous tissues and nerve cells. So nervous tissue is primarily found in the brain, the spinal cord, and these nerve cells make up the entire nervous system. So they play a very important role. And on top of that, these can be very large in size. Each individual nerve cell could be up to 1 meter long, so that's really huge. So, hope you enjoyed this diagrammatic video. I'm just going to give you a few more different views of the diagram so you can get a fully immersive experience. To the axon terminals right here. And we have the nodes of ranvier, which is the small gaps. The myelin sheath, which is a thick layer that provides insulation. You have this extremely intricate, detailed nerve cell body, cyton. And we have the cytoplasmic granules, which are deeply stained. And finally, we have the dendrites. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to all your friends that might feel that this video is helpful for them. Until then, this is Nischal signing off.